Hey, welcome to today's webinar. Before we get started, I'm going to cover a couple of housekeeping items. We'll ask that everyone remain muted throughout the presentation, but if you need assistance or have questions, please feel free to use the chat button or the Q&A. Also, we will be sending out a copy of the recording as well as a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that will come out in the next day or two from the IES Zoom user account. Today, I'm going to introduce our speaker, Adrienne Kroll, who is the Assistant Director of Quality over at NC State's IES. So, Adrienne, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Susan. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to A Beginner's Guide to ChatGPT for Management Systems Development. I'm really excited about this webinar. I'm hoping this will be a fun one for you. I just love to talk about ChatGPT. So yeah, we're going to definitely have fun with this one today. So a brief outline. We'll start with what is a management system in the context of this webinar, okay, along with what ChatGPT is, how it works. We'll look at how to access it and what prompts work best. We'll talk a little bit about how to get more accurate results. And then we'll finish off with some things to keep in mind along with limitations and implications of the tool. All right, so a quick disclaimer, I had to throw that out there. I'm not an expert in ChatGPT. Everything you're going to see is my own personal experience from using the tool. It's not final advice. Myself and IES, of course, assume no responsibility for the results you may generate from the tool, as well as its accuracy or timeliness. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about limitations. All right, so for purposes of this webinar, we're going to look at management systems as being a business system based on ISO, the International Organization for Standardization. So that could include, but of course is not limited to, general quality management systems. So if you're using 9001, AS for automotive, AS for aerospace, IETF for automotive. If you're using environmental management systems or health and safety management systems, and even if you're using information security management systems. So again, you can use it with any management system you're using, but these are some of the ones we'll probably touch on a little bit today. All right, so I'm going to launch a poll right as we get started. I want to know, how often are you using generative AI? So Susan, if you could help me with that.
Here we go. Give everybody a few seconds to complete the poll. Okay, leave it open for another 10 seconds.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end. Looks like we have everyone participating.
Great.
And let's share the results.
Awesome. Okay, so most people every day, once in a while, never use it, and a few people are like, what is it? Right? Good. All right. Well, thank you all for playing along. So let's talk about it. The answer to that. And again, there's no right or wrong answer. So generative AI is artificial intelligence that's capable of generating some type of text or image or even media using a generative model. The great thing about generative AI is that it learns the patterns and structures that are input into it as training data, and then it's going to generate new data that's very similar to the characteristics it's received. So believe it or not, most of you are probably using some type of generative AI every single day, and you may not even know it. So for instance, if you're using Gmail or Outlook and it gives you recommendations for finishing your sentences, that's a form of generative AI, along with the nudges you may get to respond to emails. Same thing in Microsoft Word, it gives you that capability. It's being integrated into Siri and Alexa. Even now, Zoom has AI capability directly built into the tool. Microsoft Bing, for a while now, has integrated ChatGPT directly into the tool, but now Microsoft just launched what they call Microsoft Copilot, and that's a part of Bing as well as their whole Microsoft suite that lets you have AI capabilities built into the like Word and Excel. So that's a really fun feature. All right, so good. Let's keep going. All right, so I want you to think about this quote. There's been a lot of uproar, especially within the past year, about AI replacing humans. Personally, I don't think that's as much of a big deal to worry about, AI completely replacing humans. But this quote from Harvard Business Review, I think really is at the heart of why it's important. AI itself may not replace humans, but humans with AI will replace humans without AI, right? So this is right along the lines of where we were in the early days of the internet, or for those that use a lot of tools, software, maybe those that learn the software maybe progressed a little bit faster or quicker or more efficiently than those that didn't know how to use the tool. So pretty much the best time to learn about ChatGPT or AI in general was yesterday. Okay, the next best time is today. All right, so this is important. So I'm glad you all were able to attend this webinar today. So what is ChatGPT? It's an AI chatbot that was developed by a company called OpenAI that is backed by Microsoft. And most of you are familiar with chatbots. We're using these a lot nowadays, like if you're contacting customer service departments or you're browsing a website and a chat feature pops up and asks if you have questions. So we're getting more and more comfortable with chatbots, but this was released in November of 2022. It's a natural language processing tool that's driven by AI and allows you to have a very human-like conversation with the chatbot. And really more than that, it allows you to ask questions. It can assist you with writing emails, your essays, if you're doing coding, so much that the tool can do. All right, so let's talk about that. So how is it working? It works by attempting to understand the prompts that you give it, and then it replies with a string of words that it's going to predict will be the best answer to your question. And this is based on the data it's been trained on. So currently it's pulling from a data set that goes up to January of 2022. So pretty much anything that was on the internet up to January of 2022 was made available to ChatGPT, but it's still learning. It uses something called reinforcement learning from human feedback. And so basically you are teaching the AI as you use it. And I'll show you when we drop into the tool here, you can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And based on whether or not you say thumbs up, it'll know that that's a good response. Thumbs down, it'll know it's a bad response, and you can regenerate. So it's learning. When it entered the market, it came in as a research preview that was free, and it still is free. GPT 3.5 is still free, but as of the end of August of this year, they did roll out an enterprise version, which is paid, and it's not much. I mean, it's like $20 a month, but ChatGPT 4 has more capabilities, including the data analysis. So 3.5, just keep in mind, is shared with the world. Whatever you put into it, anybody in the world has access to it. GPT-4 is said to be by OpenAI, is said to be private and will not be used in the future to train the model. So I've not verified that, I'm not sure, but according to the company, GPT-4 is private. So if you have things that you want to enter that are more proprietary, you have concerns about that, then I would tell you to lean more towards just paying for the paid version. All right, so how do we access it? The website is chat.openai.com. And if you'll allow me, at this point, I'm going to switch back and forth between the tool and the PowerPoint presentation, because if I try to put them side by side, it makes it really hard to see the screen. So here is ChatGPT, chat.openai.com. It comes up with this kind of interface here at the beginning that even gives you some ideas of things to look for. And if you notice up here, there's the 3.5 version that's free, but I'm using the 4 version just so I can show you a few extra capabilities. And then it also has the ability to add plugins if you know, maybe want to add some additional search features. Okay. All right. So what can you do with ChatGPT? Let's launch right into it. So if I'm working in management systems development, how can I use ChatGPT to help me in my business? One of the first things is just getting advice on specific areas of the standard. For folks that are just trying to implement a standard for the first time, some of the features that are more leadership centric, like understanding the context of your business, risk and opportunity planning, you can ask ChatGPT for advice on those areas. So let's take this example. I'm a small auto parts manufacturer in Winston-Salem. I need help understanding who are my top 5 interested parties, what risk should I consider when operating my business, and what opportunities do I have? All right, so I'm gonna start a new search. I'm going to pop this question right into ChatGPT, and let's see what it tells us. So it's going to just give it a minute to start formulating a response. And then right off the bat, it starts to talk about, here are some of your interested parties. You may need to think about your customers. And for those of us that are very familiar with implementing management systems, we all know some of the top 3 are customers, suppliers, employees. So it's great that it's pulling those. Also your community, regulatory bodies. And then just like I asked it, it's giving me my top 5 risks to think about as an organization. And then as it continues on, it's going to pop into my top 5 opportunities. All right, let's give it 1 second to pull that up. There we go. All right, so it's telling me to think about innovation and so forth. So if I'm looking at implementing a management system, this is something that I could take back to my leadership team and say, okay, have we considered these things? Or maybe this is where we want to start as an organization. All right, so that's one thing that ChatGPT can help with. All right, let's see what else. So let's say I have to build standard operating procedures for my business. A lot of you may be working on SOPs or work instructions or training plans. So let's say I have just bought in a new welding machine. I've hired some welders. I'm going to bring that in-house. So I need a template for a standard operating procedure for a welding process. So let's see if ChatGPT can help me with that. All right, so let's go back to the tool and let's pop that question in. Create a template for an SOP for a welding process. And again, it's going to take a minute to think, and then it's going to start to build my SOP. Here's a template you can use. So just like that, you have a starting point, okay? And just in the interest of time, I'm going to pause this. And I'm going to show you here where I've already generated this response so you can see the full thing. So it gave me my doc controls. And again, this is just a template. So it's giving me my table of contents and my intro and scope and so on. And then I had the option, notice here it tells me it has a little clipboard. If I like it, I can copy it and paste it into a Word document. If I like the response, I can give it a thumbs up and it's going to say, do you want to provide some additional feedback? If not, that's fine, just submit. And then now the thumbs down goes away. If I didn't like it, I could have hit that. Now let's say I like this template, but I'm just not real good at developing or writing an introduction and scope. I need some help with that. You think ChatGPT can help? Absolutely. So I can tell it, remember, it's an ongoing conversation, so I don't have to go back and retype anything. I can just ask it as very next question. write the introduction and scope. And it knows that I'm referring to the introduction and scope that are part of my SOP. All right. And then just like that, ChatGPT is going to write an intro and scope statement for me to get started. All right. So now, again, you're going to have to tailor this to your business. I wouldn't just take it and pop it in a Word document and go off and start using it. But it's something to help you get started that then you could tailor for your organization. All right. So let's see what else. Let's say I have an integrated management system. So many of you may be working with 9001 and 14 and 45001 in your business. And so I need help developing an integrated manual. So I can ask ChatGPT to help me there. All right, so let me show you this one I already generated just to save some time since we have limited time this morning. So I asked ChatGPT, create a template for integrated 9001, 14,001, and 45,001 manual for my small business. And just like that, what I think is cool is that I did not tell ChatGPT what these standards were, but it automatically knew that 9001 was quality, 14 was environmental, and 45 was occupational health and safety. It just knew that. And so just like that, it's going to create a structured outline where it pulls together some of the common elements of the standards, and then it gives you breakouts for where the areas of the standard may be different. So this gives you a framework to start from to write that integrated manual. And then, of course, if you need help with any particular section, ChatGPT is going to be more than happy to help you take any one of these and go down a layer of detail. Okay, so that one is I think is really useful. All right, so what else? Let's say I need to hire a supplier, or I need to perform supplier audits. Many of you may be auditing suppliers. I can ask ChatGPT to help me there too. So I want to first hire a supplier. So let's go there first and see if ChatGPT can help. And again, I already generated this to help help with time. So I asked ChatGPT to create a template for a contract to hire a medical device supplier. Now, again, it could be any type of supplier. I just plug medical device in there just because. And so it's telling me, oh, great. Yeah, creating a template for hiring involves several elements. Please note this is a general guideline. What I really like too, and I didn't see this a few months ago when I first started trying this out with the tool, but I've in the chat in GPT-4, it's now kind of giving you some things to think about. So it's telling you, it's recognizing this is a contract. So, hey, you may want to seek legal advice to ensure the contract is meeting all legal requirements and protects your interests. But here you go, here's your outline. And so just like that, it's going to give me an agreement that I could go off and potentially use with a supplier that I am hiring. That includes the scope of work, quality assurance, and so on and so forth, right? And so again, I can take this and I can copy and paste it and then go off and use it. Now, of course, you're going to tailor it for your business, right? But I can still go off and use it. All right. So now I have that supplier on board. And I want to perform regular evaluations. Many of the ISO standards require that you regularly evaluate your suppliers. So I need a form for how to help me do that. So here we go. I'm going to ask ChatGPT again, create a form for me for a supplier audit. All right. And so again, it's telling me why it's important, because I don't know why ChatGPT feels the need to tell you why it's important, but it's great because it's having a conversation. It's going to tell you why it's important. But remember, this is a template, so you're still going to have to tailor it for your needs. But it's going to supply you a supplier audit form. So here you go. You have the details on your supplier, the audit details, things you may want to think about. Organization and management. It's going to break it up in the different areas. Again, you're going to have to tailor it. And I gave it a very, very high level prompt So remember, the more detailed you are in your prompt, the better. But if you just want something very generic, then you can stay with a pretty high level response. Okay. All right. And so let's say from there, um, I'm not exactly sure. I'm looking at section 2 here, and it talks about facilities and environment as part of what I need to audit my potentially audit my supplier on. But I'm not sure that I see 3 high level things here, but I'm really not sure what these are. Maybe can you help me build a checklist for what this actually looks like, right? So I can, once again, I'm going to put that into ChatGPT. It recognizes it as an ongoing conversation. So just like that, I can say develop a checklist for section 2, and it knows that I'm talking about section 2 of that audit form, right? It pulls it out here. And just like that, it gives me a more detailed checklist. Okay, we're talking about facility conditions. These are some of the areas you may want to check specifically. For storage and material handling, here are the things, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it's going to give you a blown up, more detailed checklist that again you can take and copy and paste and tailor and use it as you need to. Okay. All right. So now let's say so I've hired the supplier, I'm auditing them on a regular basis. Unfortunately, I've encountered some quality issues, some quality concerns. So I need to have a conversation with this supplier to know how to move forward. So once again, I can come to ChatGPT and I'm going to ask it, I need your help developing a script for a conversation with my vendor who is delivering poor quality products. And so now it's going to help me. It's becoming a personal assistant at this point, right? And it's going to help me generate a conversation to have with that supplier. And so again, it says, this is what you'll say, right? Hello, vendor. This is Adrian. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. The vendor is going to have some type of response. And then you're going to respond. So I'm reading through this and I'm like, oh, you know what? This is great, but I wasn't talking about, I really didn't want to have a face-to-face conversation, right? Or maybe I didn't want to have a phone conversation. I want to send this as an email. So can you revamp it for me? And just like that, I'm going to tell ChatGPT, make this an email, right? Because I just want to send it out as an email. And so just like that, it's going to turn it into an email that you can send out to that vendor. Dear vendor, it's taking all the same information, but it's revamping it for you in an email format. All right. So it goes from helping you create forms and templates to being a personal assistant that can even help you generate a conversation. All right. So which I think is awesome, fabulous, right? All right, so now let's say as part of my system, we all know we have to address corrective actions. So I have a couple of examples here that I'll just touch on. So let's say I am a company that is making IV lines. There's a report of errors that have risen 7% since the previous quarter. So again, whatever you do, whatever you're making, whatever you're doing, you can plug it in there. Okay. So I want to know if ChatGPT can help me build a corrective action plan. All right. So let's try that out. So so I actually did this one a few months ago, and I want to show you the difference in what results you would get a few months ago versus now and how the tool is learning. All right, so notice this was a few months ago. I did it in 3.5. I asked it that question about my errors, and so it's printing out, it's spitting out for me a plan for addressing well, I'm sorry, it's actually telling me because I ask it, what are some of my potential root causes? Here's my problem. Help me generate some root causes. So if you're having discussions with your team, or maybe you've already had some type of root cause analysis event where you've looked at things, but maybe I want to know what are some other potential root causes that maybe we overlook. ChatGPT can help you with that. So it's saying, have you considered human error? Have you considered training, equipment, material, right? So it's kind of almost stepping you through. If you're familiar with fishbone diagram, it's almost stepping you through like some ideas coming from a fishbone, right? And so it gave me these ideas, and then I said, okay, we've determined that material quality is the root cause. Now I want you to create a corrective action plan that's based exactly on 9001 2015. So I'm telling it 9001 2015, so it knows exactly what standard to use. And so just like that, and this is what I think is awesome, it goes, it's pulling from its knowledge of 9001 2015, and it goes exactly to clause 10.2, where we find the requirements for corrective action. So not only is it giving it to you directly from clause 10.2 the way the standard requires, it went one step further and pulled other clauses from the standard. So it recognized that you also need to address communication, which is 7.4. It's also part of your management review, right? You need to go back and update your documents, and you need to retrain, right? So it's pulling even from other sections of the standard, which I think is awesome. Now let me show you the difference between here and then I did this again with a slightly different example, because we had a question prior to today's webinar about using ChatGPT for environmental management systems. So I pulled this. So this is a real life example from a client we worked with and performed a 14,001 internal audit. And so this is a real life nonconformance that was written for them. And so I took it and popped it in here exactly like it was in the report. I didn't even ask ChatGPT to do anything particular with it. I said, here's the requirement, and here was the nonconformance. That's all I put in there. And so it automatically started to think about, oh, hey, you know what? This might be, sorry, here it is. This might be a nonconformance to 14,001. And so you need to ensure as part of your EMS that you're addressing these things, risk, opportunities, and so on. So it helps me to address this gap. These are the things that I need to think about. So I said, okay, that's great. Now I need you to help me write a corrective action, because I have to answer this nonconform as a business, right? I have to answer this nonconformance back to my auditor. So help me write a corrective action for it. And so just like that, it's going to start to write your corrective action. So it gives you the problem statement. It gives you your objective, your action plan, any resources. It tells you to specify a timeline. It reminds you that you need to go back and evaluate the effectiveness and then update your records, right? So this is awesome. If you need a place to start, I know for many clients we work with, they may be given a non-conformance during an external audit, and they're like, I'm not even sure where to start to address this. ChatGPT can help you. Now, again, this tool is it's not, it's just a tool. It's only that. So I would say you always want to take it and not just take the first thing it gives you, right? You're going to use it and tailor it for your business, but it can at least help you get started. Okay. All right, so let's keep going just to make sure we stay on time. What are some other ways that you can use it for your business, not just related to management systems, but let's say you're in marketing and you need some webinar topics. You want to talk about how to use ChatGPT in manufacturing, but I want to make it fun, dynamic, and interesting, right? So again, I can take this and plug it directly into ChatGPT and ask it to give me some webinar topics. Okay. And just like that, it's going to start to generate your webinar topics. Okay. And again, just in the interest of time, I'm going to pause it here. And I already did this for you, and so I'll show you the results. So it gave me 10 different engaging, dynamic webinar topics that I could go off. It gave me the title. I can go off and use this, and it gave me a description of the webinar. So now if, let's say I'm doing webinars throughout next year, I have 10 different topics that I can potentially use to build off of. So you can ask it to put together a plan for you. Another thing, you can develop a list of action items from a meeting transcript. So now that you can pull a meeting transcript directly out of Zoom or Microsoft Teams if you're doing a virtual meeting. Now that AI is integrated into Zoom and Microsoft, you may not need to pull it out and put it into ChatGPT separately. But let's just say you wanted to do that. So I have a meeting transcript and I want to generate action items. So again, I'm asking ChatGPT to be a personal assistant for me. So I'm going to give it, so I'm going to tell ChatGPT, I'm going to give you a transcript of meeting minutes. Based on that, please summarize the meeting for me. So of course, ChatGPT is willing to help. So here are the people that were involved. Here's a transcript of the meeting. And just like that, it's going to generate a summary. So these were the topics. It's going to pull through that transcript and pull out and summarize the main topics or points that were covered. Okay. And it even gave me some action items. But I say, hey, this action item list is good, but based on this transcript, I want you to give me the action items by action owner and deadline and put it in a table format that's easier for me to use. And just like that, it read through the transcript and it pulled out every action item, who talked about providing it, and then the deadline that they discussed. So now again, you have this, you can just copy and paste it and send it out as minutes from the meeting. Okay. You can also translate things into different languages. There's one client that we work with. When I go visit their facility, one whole side is English speaking, the other side is Spanish speaking. So they have to translate their documents or have their documents in English and in Spanish. So of course, ChatGPT can help here too, right? So I can ask it. I can, give it a second to come up here. There it is. All right, so I'm telling ChatGPT, I want you to act like a Spanish translator. I'm going to type a phrase in English, and I want you to translate it into the corrected, improved Spanish version. So sure, I can do that. So I tell it here let's say I'm typing in a quality policy or something like that. Here at Acme Inc., we are committed to providing quality products to our customers. And then immediately it's going to translate it for me into Spanish. All right. So I can use this maybe to help with my documentation or at least give me a good starting point. And then you would just come back and say, start responding again in English. ChatGPT will go back to responding in English, right? So it's going to recognize that prompt. Okay. Another key thing you can do is data analysis. And this is really the strength of ChatGPT 4, is that it's going to allow you to analyze data, which is you can't really do in the 3.5 version very well. All right, so let me give you an example of this. Give me one second. There we go. All right. So I tried this out. I had some data that I wanted to analyze. So I told ChatGPT, I'm going to upload some data in a table format, and I want you from that to tell me the total revenue per quarter. Okay. So this came directly out of Microsoft Excel. Okay. So I just copied and pasted so you notice here, it's not organized in any particular way. I literally just copied and pasted it straight from Excel. But ChatGPT is going to recognize the data. And first it's going to tell me, okay, here's how I'm going to calculate it. So here's the breakdown per quarter. And then to summarize it, here's your answer. So it gives me the revenue per quarter, just like I asked directly from the data. Okay. And so let's say I want to graph it. So I can ask ChatGPT, can you graph this? So notice this. it can't, so at this time, at this point in time, in this platform, it cannot create graphical representations, but it can teach you how to do it in a tool that does have that capability. So it tells me if you want to do it in Excel or Google Sheets, here's how you would do it. Let's say you're coding, you're using Python. This is the code that you would put in. And then notice it has a little option here. You can copy it. So I could copy this code and put it directly into Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, and it would generate the graph for me. So even though you can't necessarily get a graph from the tool, it'll still teach you how to do that. Okay, which is great. All right, and then some other things we don't have time to really touch on these, but some other things if you need it to help you further explain things, like maybe you want to know how different management systems work together, like 14 and 9001, or maybe you need to know who's required to be certified to the automotive standard, what tier of suppliers. It can tell you. These are all searches that I've run in the tool. And so I know I've seen it work. There's a lot of emphasis out there now about ESG in the environmental world. So how do ESG requirements integrate with 14,001? You can ask it that. Or let's say you're interested in selling your medical devices in Australia. Do I need to be ISO 1345 certified? And it can give you guidance on that as well. So a lot of different things you can do with this tool. Okay. All right, so now, so how can I get more accurate results? So one of the main ways, if you feel like you're using ChatGPT and your results are maybe not as accurate as you would like, one thing you may want to try is describing the level of complexity. Okay, so what I mean by that, let's say, let's use an example of heat treating. So let's say I want to know how heat treating works. Okay, I know about it, I'm familiar with it, but I want a little bit more detail about how heat treating works. All right, so if you ask it how does heat treating work, it's going to give you a very scientific breakdown of heat treating, right? So that's all great, but that's just still too detailed for me. So I'm going to slightly tweak the level of complexity. I'm going to say, explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, right? Because I need it in simple layman's terms. So just like that, it took every one of the responses that it gave and it slightly changed it to talk to a 5-year-old, right? So think of heat treating like I'm baking cookies. First, you put the cookie dough, which is like the metal in the oven. The oven's heat changes the dough, just like heat changes the metal, right? So it's going to break it down for you into terms that you can maybe more easily understand, okay? And then let's say you want to get real cheeky and you like football. Explain it to me in football terms, right? So imagine a football team, which is the metal, going through a warm-up session. The warm-up, which is heating, gets the team, the metal, ready for changes, just like heating prepares the metal for changes. So you can put anything in there that you want that will help you better understand it. You can ask ChatGPT to change that level of complexity for you. Explain it like I'm 5, explain it like I'm a teenager, right? So you can do that. Along with, you could also make it industry specific, right? So you can say, explain it to me as a lawyer would, right? Or let's say I need help with my cybersecurity. So I want you to act like a cybersecurity expert. I'm going to provide you some information and I want you to, based on that information, help me develop an effective cybersecurity strategy. All right, so I popped that in and tried it. And ChatGPT was able to give me a cybersecurity strategy for my small business. Right. So for those of you that maybe, are in need of a cybersecurity strategy, not sure exactly where to start, now this is not going to replace an expert by any means, right? But it at least maybe helps you to get thinking about what type of strategy might I use for my business. So ChatGPT can help you there. Okay. All right. So let's talk about some things to keep in mind, all right, which are important. I know I threw a lot at you. We could talk all day long about what ChatGPT can do, and I had to narrow it down because I get real excited about it for this webinar. But here are some things to keep in mind. As I said, you want to be clear and specific. The more specific you can be in your searches, the better. Okay. And just in general, I know I showed you ways, and people love to use ChatGPT to help you with generating templates and kind of being that personal assistant. But don't rely on templates. For those of you that work in management systems, don't over rely on templates. Don't over document. Don't use it as a crutch. However, it can be a really good place to start to help you. Okay. And then ChatGPT, I told you it was baselined in time in 2022 when it was rolled out, but it's still learning along the way. However, there are many, many other competitors that are coming online. So one of the top ones was created by Google. It's called Google Bard. The difference is that, let me show you this. Google Bard is referencing and accessing the internet in real time. Okay, so it's actually, if you have a Gmail account, you can use Google Bard, and it is pulling from real-time internet, which is helpful. So notice it tells you it's an experimental version, and I think this is key too. And I'm glad they put this right up front. They want you to know your conversation is processed by a human. And so don't enter anything that you don't want used, okay, reviewed or used. So they're telling you right up front that it's open to anybody, but it's if you want to get information more in real time, Google Bard is another option for you that works a lot like ChatGPT. I'm not sure if it has the same data analysis capabilities. You'd have to play around with that, but I know a lot of people like to use it because of the real time. Okay. All right. So some limitations and implications. Remember, ChatGPT can sometimes give a plausible answer that's still incorrect. Okay. When I was playing with this tool a few months ago, I asked it about a specific section in the ISO standard, and it actually pulled from a version that was, am I cutting in and out? Let me know if I'm cutting in and out. Someone's having if I need to switch over, let me know. Okay. All right. So it was pulling from a section of the, okay, good. Sound is good. Perfect. Thank you, Edmund. Um, okay, Liam was cutting in and out, but all right, thank you. All right, so it was pulling from a previous version of the ISO standard. And so the answer looked correct, but if I didn't know that that was a past version of the standard, I would have thought that it was right, but it was still incorrect. So again, it's not going to totally replace the need to research it yourself, okay? It cannot ask clarifying questions. It's going to assume what you intended. If you give it an ambiguous prompt, it's not going to ask you to clarify. Okay. Some legal implications. I think this is what people are the most concerned about. It generates responses in a human-like way, but the output is not considered an original creation of the human mind. So therefore, it's not copyright protected. However, there's still a very real possibility that what it gives you could come from something that has an existing copyrighted material. So you could unwittingly infringe on someone's copyright if you're publishing a response that closely resembles somebody else's work. So again, especially for certain things that you're writing, I would say don't just take it at face value. You may want to use it and tweak it in some way, or go off and even research to make sure it doesn't exist somewhere else. But the main thing is if you'd like to start using this more in your business, it's very, very worth having a conversation with IT, your legal department, even HR, to talk about how you're going to use the tool in your business, and just what risk you may encounter along the way. All right. So before we wrap up, again, I know I threw a lot at you. I want to know how perceptive you are. Did you notice anything different about the images in this presentation? And if you said they're AI generated, you're exactly right. All the images that you saw in this presentation were generated through AI. Yes, even this one. And I know it looks like a photograph, right? So I tell you the key giveaway, if you're wondering if an image is AI generated, so all of these are AI generated, look at the fingers, look at the hands. Most AI image generators are not very good at digits like fingers and toes. So you notice this little girl has 6 fingers. I don't know if you saw that. And then even over here, notice how her fingers kind of come together. So if you're curious whether or not something is AI generated, if you look at the digits, that usually is a good giveaway. So last thing I'll leave you with, if you want to use AI in graphic design, so we talked about developing these different manuals and training documents and training presentations. Um, you can you can do that using a few tools. Microsoft Designer I've never used, but I've heard is good. All the images in this presentation I did in Midjourney. Okay, in my opinion, my personal opinion, I still think Midjourney is probably the best one on the market right now. There is a small fee to pay, and it's a little bit more difficult to use because you have to have a Discord account. So if you're familiar with Discord, for those of you that are maybe do gaming or your kids do gaming, you have to have a Discord account. So it's a little bit more difficult, but I still think it's the best. Dolly 3, though, has just launched in October and it is integrated into ChatGPT. So now there is a notice in ChatGPT 4, there is a integrate. If you pay for that version, you're going to automatically get Dolly 3. All right. And so quick example of what you can do with Dolly 3. Let's say I want to, in my presentation, or in my training document or in my SOP or even on my website, I want to create a picture of a woman that's working on equipment in a manufacturing environment. So it's going to always print out 4 different options for you. Okay. All right. And so let's say I really like this one, but I don't like the color of the equipment because it kind of fades into the background. So I'm going to say I want to use the picture at the bottom right, but make the image orange instead of blue. And so just like that, it's going to pull it out and it's going to change the it's going to change the color from blue to orange. Okay. All right. Or say maybe I need a logo for my business. My business is Mythical True Value Metrology. We do calibration of tools and precision measuring equipment and testing equipment. So I can ask it, help me with a logo. And so just like that, it's gonna help come up with some ideas for you for a logo. Okay, so that's just a quick example of some things you can do even with Dolly 3 inside ChatGPT. All right, so I know I threw a lot at you, and I'm so glad you were here for this. So any questions? And this image is AI generated as well. All right, I see a few in the chat. Let me go back here. Hopefully my sound was okay for most of you. Where can I find AI generating image websites? Yeah, so if you search for them, like I mentioned, Chad, Dolly 3 is integrated right into ChatGPT. Midjourney is probably one of the more popular ones. There are a ton of them out there, and more coming each day. The AI is changing so fast. I had to change this presentation probably 3 or 4 times before we even got to today because it's just moving so quickly. So yeah, if you Google it, there are some really good ones out there, Chad. I hope that helps. How much does Chat GPT cost? So the 3.5 is free, 4 is $20 a month. So not too expensive. I don't know if that's going to change over time, but right now it's $20 a month. Yeah, any other questions? Okay, there's Barbara. Go ahead, Barbara.
Yes, good morning, Adrian. Thank you for the presentation. You do have to set up a GPT account, right? and to
Yes.
use it. And then when I was trying to do that, it says continue with Google, continue with Microsoft, continue with Apple.
Mhm.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so you can, when you sign up for ChatGPT, you can either use just a regular username and password like you would for any website, or you can, like for instance, I'm using it through Gmail. So I have my personal Gmail account. So you can create your account through Gmail so that when you log in, it's going to use your Gmail login. So you don't have to enter a username and password every time. Or if you want to use your Apple ID. So you can, that's just different ways of logging in so that you don't have to create a username and password. Yeah, hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Amanda asked, can ChatGPT create slide decks? Good question. I'm not, I haven't tried that, Amanda, but I imagine it could. Let me see. I think there was something that I asked it to help me with. Now that you mentioned it, because now this was something I was just kind of working on the side. Um, yeah. So I didn't go that deep into it, Amanda, but I was just playing around with the tool and I asked it to help me develop a webinar topic, some webinar topics, and then actually create a slide for it. Here it is. So I picked one of those ideas and I asked it to develop a presentation outline for number 2. And so it didn't give me code that I could put directly in a PowerPoint, but it did give me an outline for a PowerPoint presentation. So slide 1 is an introduction. Here's the things you want to think about. Put this on slide 2, put this on slide 3. So you can definitely do that within the tool, but I don't know that it'll necessarily give you the code to go off and do it, if that helps. All right, good. Cheryl asked, what is a Discord account? Yeah, that's a good question, Cheryl. So Discord, if I can get to it here, Discord is kind of like a lot of gamers use it. Discord is a place where you can, it's like a social media account where you can talk about different things and set up different groups to talk through. So like it's based on interest. So if you use a particular gaming system, or I've seen people use it in stocks if they're trying to talk about certain stocks. So it's basically a group that you set up that has a common interest. And so if you go within Discord, you create an account, there is a group specifically for Midjourney. And then within Discord, you may type in there, I want an image for a manufacturing plant, or I want an image for a person in a manufacturing plant, and then it'll create it within Discord. The only challenge is there are like hundreds of people putting information in there all at the same time. So you may input something and then you have to go search for it in a string. But yeah, so Discord is just Midjourney works through Discord at this time. I hope that helps, Cheryl. The capability to, thank you, Barbara. The capability to generate PowerPoint is coming. Good, that'd be great. Yeah, I know we're a little over. I appreciate everybody's patience, but any other questions? Susan, how are we on time? Are we okay?
Yes, we still have a couple of minutes if anyone else has questions.
Okay, good. All right, Kevin. My experience with PowerPoint generation is somewhat limited. It can generate text, but not whole slides is what I've seen. Oh, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, that's great. Good. Yeah, thank you, Edmund. I hope it was helpful for you. Yeah, thanks, Barbara. Thanks for being here. Good. Well, I'll hang out here, but if there are, there we go, Chad, do you have any suggestions on how to make an awareness bulletin? That's a good one, Chad. Um, I don't know if I have any specific suggestions, and I may be misunderstanding your question, but Chad, you could absolutely ask Chat GPT that question, and it can maybe give you a starting point, for generating an awareness bulletin. So I know for me, sometimes I may try to Google something first just to get an idea of where I'm going with it, and then I can put a more detailed prompt into ChatGPT. So you can do that too. I don't know if that helped, Chad. If you had something specific, just drop it in. I may have missed your question. That's fine. Okay, good, good. Thank you, Chad. Yeah,
Adrian,
good.
if anybody participating wants to having a more detailed conversation with you after the webinar, can they contact you?
Yes, yes, please do. Yeah, thank you, Barbara. And I didn't put my email address here, but I'll add it to this presentation because I think we give access to the slides afterwards. So yeah, please feel free to reach out by email. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm learning too. So, but I'm happy to learn right along with you. We can try some things out together, and we can find some things out together. So I'm happy to have that discussion. But I appreciate everybody's time and for you being here today. I hope you took some things from it that you could use and feel a little bit more comfortable trying to integrate ChatGPT into your day-to-day business.
Hey, Adrian, thank you so much. Today was a very interesting presentation. I know I enjoyed it. So thank you for presenting, and thank you to everyone who attended. We will be sending out a copy of the recording and the PowerPoint presentation. So look for that in the next day or so. Thank you all. Have a great day.